big surprise for tonight. I have nothing. Absolutely nothing. That's true and not true. Okay? I told y'all I know eschatology like the back of my hand. It is my thing. But I did not prepare a lesson tonight. I did that on purpose. Okay, I did that on purpose. Last week, we went through this thing 200 miles an hour. And we got up to the rapture. That's what we got up to. So, obviously, most of eschatology deals with from the rapture until. But I don't want to do another 200 mile an hour lesson tonight. Okay. And what I thought was interesting, I asked Michelle about it. She said not interesting at all. So we had to nix that idea. It's Revelation chapter 4, verse 1. What does Revelation 4:1 say? Anybody got any idea? All right, Revelation 4:1 is where John sees a door open in heaven, and I heard a voice in heaven saying, "Come up hither." King James, come up here. Okay? All right. A lot of people, and Brother John's probably heard this 1,000 times, Revelation 4:1 is where the rapture takes place in Revelation, because obviously John's called up to heaven. It is not the rapture. Okay, it is not the rapture. So just want you to know that. Now, it is when the rapture takes place, but it's not the rapture. All right, now, Ian, I don't want to talk over your head, so we get to using church talk, and sometimes people are like, what in the world is he talking about? The rapture is the next thing to happen in God's plan, okay? Essentially, he's going to come back in the clouds. He's not going to make it all the way to earth. And everybody that's saved from Pentecost, which is 50 days after Jesus' resurrection, until he comes back, will be raptured, taken up into the clouds. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 is the main passage on that, 4:16. All right, so we're raptured, taken up into heaven. And once we get to heaven, we go before the judgment seat of Christ, which is where we're judged, 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 10, 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 11 through 15. Okay, both of them talk about the judgment seat of Christ. Only saved people are there, and only people from Pentecost until the rapture, which can happen at any moment. The rapture could happen before I finish this lesson, or it could be 10,000 years from now. There's nothing stopping the rapture from occurring, okay? Everything in the Bible that needs to have happened has happened, okay? It's what's known as an imminent return. In other words, it could happen at any moment. It's imminent, okay? Nothing separating. The second coming is not imminent. That's when Jesus comes all the way down to earth and establishes his earthly kingdom. Things have to happen before that can take place. All right? One thing that has to happen, the Antichrist has to come, sign the 7-year treaty with Israel. He has to go into the temple at the 3.5-year mark and set himself up as God and hunt Jews and Christians and try to kill them. Those things have to happen. The 2 witnesses have to come. That's 2 people from the Old Testament that come back. It's Moses and Elijah. They come back and they have a ministry here on earth for 3.5 years. And they have to prophesy against the Antichrist for 3.5 years and then be killed and lay in the street for 3 days. And then they're resurrected, raptured into heaven. That has to happen, okay? There's several things that have to happen before the second coming. Nothing has to happen before the rapture, okay? So the second coming is exactly what it sounds like. Jesus comes again a second time all the way down to earth, sets up his kingdom, Battle of Armageddon, all that stuff. Rapture, he does not come all the way back. It is a secret event for all practical purposes. Only Christians are called up to be with him in heaven at that point, okay? So that's the rapture. Essentially what happens is when we get into heaven, we have the judgment seat of Christ, only us church-age Christians. And sometime I personally think, and we're not going to go into it tonight, but from the time of the rapture until the beginning of the tribulation, I believe, is 40 years. Most people that teach eschatology have the rapture and the tribulation starts immediately thereafter. Left Behind. Anybody ever heard of that series? Anybody ever seen the movies or read it? Okay, what happens? Rapture, next moment, the Antichrist shows up, and the tribulation starts. There's nothing in the Bible that connects the rapture with the tribulation. You have to have the rapture, and then the tribulation has to start. Their relationship, other than one comes before the other one, there is no relationship that is established in iron. I think it's 40 years. I have a good reason for believing that. In Thessalonians it says that those who did not believe, he's going to send a strong delusion, God will, so that they should believe a lie and be damned. Okay? In other words, they don't get a second chance. God's actually going to send a lie to these people, and they're going to believe a lie, and they're going to be damned. All right? Now, let me get this for you very, very quickly, because I see a little squinch in some of your faces. And let's see. 2 Thessalonians 2:11 is what I'm looking for. I was trying to see what in other version. All right, here. Yes, if you got your Bible, turn to 2 Thessalonians 2:11, and we'll go to verse 7. Okay, 2 Thessalonians 2:7. All right, so 2 Thessalonians 2:7 says this. Hang on, Ian's almost there. We give him a second. All right, so it's in the Pauline epistles, Ian, and you got Romans, 1st, 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1st, 2nd Thessalonians. Okay. You do? I do? Oh, cool. I saw it and it went away. Yeah. So 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 7. And this is kind of an interesting passage, especially in the King James. And I've got the NLT right here too. And I'll show you how things can be misconstrued with King James language. Okay? The King James language is actually 100% a translation, and it's very, very accurate. But I'll show you how it can be misconstrued, okay? All right, where you at, Ian? Yeah, I know it, Thessalonians. Yeah, all right, so you in Philippians, go to the right. Yeah, the other right. Your other right. Yeah, that one. Where you at now? Keep going. And we do this in Sunday school all the time, so no. Yeah, all right, you're in 2 Thessalonians? Okay. All right, so 2 Thessalonians. We don't get in a hurry in my Sunday school class. We take our time to find books because some of these books, you turn 2 pages and you just turn 4 books, it seems like. So, you there? Okay. All right, 2 Thessalonians 2:7. Catherine, what version are you looking at? Okay. All right, here's what it says. For the mystery of iniquity does already work. Only he who now lets will let until he be taken out of the way. Somebody put that in English for me, because that ain't English. I don't know what it is. You got the English Standard? Okay, read 2:7 for me. Okay, a little better. It's got restraints instead of let. In the King James, it actually says, only he who now letteth will let. What does let mean? Yeah, allow. Not in the King James. You ever played ping pong? Ball hits the net, right? And goes over the net on a serve. What do you say? You say let, right? Yeah, people think you say net, but it's not net. It's actually let. Why do they say let when the ball hits the net and goes over on a serve? Nope, it hindered it. It's an old English word. Not old English, but that's what we call it. Okay? Not allow. It says, so here it is, only he who now restrains will restrain is actually what it is. So see how the King James throws it off. Another problem with the King James. for the mystery of lawlessness or the mystery of iniquity. The Greek word is mystery. But what is a mystery to us? All right, something unknown, and what does it imply? Right, can't figure it out, right? Yeah, it's a mystery. Okay, that's not what a mystery is in the Greek, in the Bible. Okay, it says right here in the NLT, and I'm just going to read it to you, for this lawlessness is already at work secretly. Okay, so that's really what it is. This mystery is something that's hidden and now being revealed. Okay, something that you're supposed to understand now that you couldn't understand before he spoke it. Okay, that's a mystery is never meant to remain undecipherable. Okay, right. That's right. It was hidden, but then it was revealed. Okay, so I want you to get that in your mind. All right, that's why another problem. I know I'm always picking on Calvinism. I'm going to pick on it one more time, because when you talk about man's free will and God's sovereignty, and you start showing them verses, and they start getting kind of pushed into a corner by the Bible, they'll say, it's a mystery, accept it. What they mean by a mystery is something you can't understand. And every time a Calvinist is put to the wall, that's his favorite term. It's a mystery. That's not the way the Bible uses the word mystery. Okay? It's meant to be understood if you study the Bible carefully. Okay? So here is the mystery. All right? And then it says this in verse 8, and then shall be revealed that wicked, or then shall that wicked one be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth and destroy with the brightness of his coming. He's talking about the Antichrist at his second coming. Okay, second coming, not rapture. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all the deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. Now, there's a couple ways to take this verse. When does it apply and all that kind of thing. But it looks to me like what happens is an entire generation that had the opportunity to accept the gospel and rejected it, they'll never have a second chance. That's the way I understand it. This is not doctrine. This is not dogma. This is my personal opinion after studying it very carefully for many years. So what happens? 40 years from so when the Jews failed to go into the promised land because they rejected God, God rejected them. How long do they have to wonder? 40 years. Why do they have to wonder 40 years? For a whole generation to die off, right? And only people that were 20 and under were allowed to live to go into the promised land, okay? I think this is very similar to that. That's not my scriptural basis, that's my scriptural type, all right? I think what happens is after the rapture, who's spreading the gospel? Exactly, there is no gospel for 40 years, okay? I mean, there is no gospel until something happens, and I'm going to share that in just one moment. What I think happens, and this is opinion, I think nobody's there to share the gospel. But religion is here. We know that. It's just a false religion. It is a form of Christianity, but it's not Christianity. Okay? When I say form, I'm using that word very, very loosely. It looks like, it smells like, it tastes like Christianity, but it ain't. All right? And so you have this religion that is claiming to offer salvation. There'll still be churches, plenty of them. Maybe be more filled churches after the rapture than before. All right, so what happens? You got false preachers, false teachers, and people in the pews listening to a false gospel. And for 40 years, the gospel is not proclaimed. Everybody that had a chance to accept the gospel before the rapture dies off, and they never get a second chance, okay? Everybody, and I'm going to use 20 and under as a Bible precedent, they'll have a chance, all right? So They get a second chance. Who, or first chance really, but who proclaims the gospel after the 40 years are up, or whenever the tribulation starts? Who proclaims the gospel? 144,000. Yep, the 144,000. The 144,000, in my opinion, this is not in the Bible per se, but there are strong indicators. What I believe happens, this is my personal opinion again, I keep saying that because this is on film and I want y'all to understand, this is my opinion. Moses and Elijah, the two witnesses, come back. They convert the 144,000 who are godly Jewish men. Okay, it's not an allegory. It is an actual, literal, historical 144,000 male Jews who are ready to accept Messiah. Moses and Elijah show up, they accept the gospel, and these 144,000 go out and proclaim the gospel to Israel and the world. So the gospel starts being spread. Guess what happens? We know this for a fact. Revelation chapter 7, verse 14. And I saw a great crowd in heaven which no man can number. And they have white robes and all this stuff. And John didn't know who they were. And so he asked one of the 24 elders, from whence comest these? The elder asked John that actually, from where do they come? And John said, Sir, thou knowest. And he said, these are they which came out of the great tribulation and have washed their robes white in the blood of the Lamb. It was a great crowd which no man could number, of all nations, tongues, tribes, and peoples, okay? So during the tribulation, people are getting saved literally by the millions. Great crowd, nobody can number it, of all nations. So the gospel is suddenly appearing, and people are converting to the true gospel during the tribulation. And what happens to them when they accept the gospel in the second 3.5 years? Tribulation is 7 years long, Ian. The Antichrist signs a peace treaty with Israel for 7 years. For the first 3.5 years, he acts like Israel's friend. He lets them offer sacrifices like they used to in the Old Testament in the temple that's been rebuilt. So sometime or another between now and that point, the temple is going to be rebuilt in Israel where the Dome of the Rock now stands in Jerusalem. They're going to take it from the Muslims, and they are going to rebuild the temple. So keep an eye on that, okay? When that happens, they go into the temple. They can't offer sacrifices there until he signs the treaty. That allows them to offer sacrifices, just like in the Old Testament, for 3.5 years. After 3.5 years, he says, I'm done with it. Y'all are worshiping this fella called Jesus. They're not worshiping Jesus. You're worshiping God. And God is not the real God. I am. And he goes into the temple, puts his throne in the Holy of Holies, and says, I'm God, worship me. Okay? From that point forward, what is he doing to the Jews and Christians? Not just persecuting them. What's he doing? Slaughtering them. What's he doing? He's specifically, according to Revelation chapter 6, it says he is beheading them. Now, there's only one religion in the world today that beheads people, Christians and Jews. Muslims, okay? I used to wonder why the religion of the future beheaded Christians and Jews until this last pope just made a comment that caught my eye about 3 or 4 months ago. And this was very interesting to me. The Pope said the Muslims and the Catholics worship the same God. That's what he said. I'm not making it up. Please fact check me on that. Go Google it. You'll see he said Catholics and Muslims worship the same God. Put those two religions together, Catholicism and the Muslims, Islam, and you've got a super religion. If they're worshiping the same God, there's nothing stopping them from working together. And if Muslims become the right arm of this super religion, they're going to behead Christians and Jews in the future. So what I'm telling you, Ian, we're going to look at grammatical historical method here. We're out of our depth a little bit, but we don't have to take it allegorically. We know of a religion that beheads people, especially Christians and Jews, that won't accept their religion. You see what I'm saying? We don't have to allegorically interpret it. We have a literal historical religion that does this. And if it makes sense, in the plain sense, take that sense. Okay? All right, so I think that this super religion is going to hunt and kill Christians by beheading them from the 3.5-year mark onward. And you have to take the mark of the beast. Michelle and I went down to, where were we at? What was it? Whole Foods, right? Yeah, Whole Foods. You know how you pay at Whole Foods now? You put your hand on the scanner, and you can pay. We didn't do it. Yeah, it's got a thing that reads your hand. Have y'all seen this? Yeah. Okay. It's not the Antichrist. I'm not saying you can't pay that way. It makes me a little uncomfortable, though, because how do you pay in the tribulation? You have a chip in your hand, yeah, and a mark in your hand. Microchip would work in this case, a literal interpretation. But you take a mark in your hand and you pay with that mark, okay? Not far-fetched. 80 years ago, it seemed allegorical. Today, it seems very literal that people are going to be paying with a mark on their hand, some kind of barcode, whatever you want to call it, okay? So it's not hard to see that, all right? So while the Jews and Christians are being hunted for 3.5 years, people that accept the mark of the beast, the Antichrist, they're buying and selling and all of that with the mark in their forehead or in their hand. Okay. Then Christ comes back to the earth, second coming, and he fights the battle of Armageddon. What is the battle of Armageddon? Yeah, oh, yeah, that's good. Tell me what it is. Okay, yeah, it's the final battle of the tribulation. Okay, now I want you to turn. Let me see if I can remember where this is. Turn to Revelation, and let me see if I can find it. We're going to turn to Revelation 16. We'll start there. All right. And yeah, okay, this is it. Okay, that's what we'll do. Revelation 16, verse 12. And every time I taught New Testament at Florida State, this is the passage I would read, Revelation 16, 12 through 16, and I'd read it in Greek. And the only reason I would read it in Greek is because I would ask them when I got finished, what did I just read? Nobody had a clue. And I said, why don't you have a clue? I just read the Bible. I just read one of the most famous passages in the Bible. Why don't you know what I said? And they would look at me like, you retard, we don't speak Greek. And I was like, exactly. The Bible was originally written in Greek 2,000 years ago, New Testament. We don't speak Greek, so we have to rely on translation. So we already have to realize we're in a cultural disconnect. And that's how I started my class. All right, but Revelation chapter 16, verse 12. And the sixth angel poured out his bowl or vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. Who these kings of the east are? Could be Iran and Iraq, places like that, or it could be as far away as China, Japan, the east, okay? So we don't know if we're dealing with the East Middle East or the East, Japan, China, all right? So just keep that in mind. There's answers to some of it, clues, but we won't get into that right now. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, that's Satan, and out of the mouth of the beast, that's the Antichrist, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. For they are the spirits of devils, demons, working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world, to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watches and keeps his garments, so that he does not walk naked, and they see his shame. And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. All right, so there he is, Armageddon. It's right there in the Bible. It's the name that God gives the final battle. Where is Armageddon? Yeah, Har-Megiddo is the Hebrew. Har-Megiddo, Armageddon. You can kind of get it. What is Har in Hebrew? Actually, the opposite. Yeah, it's the hill, it's the Mount of Megiddo, right? So you got the Mount of Megiddo, but they're not fighting on the mountain. Where are they fighting? In the valley, in the plain, in front of the Mount of Megiddo. All right, so plain of Armageddon, the plain of Megiddo. Why is this important? Huge battles, historical battles took place. Egypt and Syria, they had massive battles on this plain. And so perfect place for tanks and all that kind of stuff to gather and big battle take place. All right, now, here is the catch to it. Turn to Revelation chapter 14, and I want you to see this because most people, Revelation 14 through 20. Revelation 14 through 20. If you have a study Bible or headers in your Bible, somebody tell me what Revelation 14:14's header is. Or do you have a header there? The reapers, okay. Anybody got a different header? Harvest of the earth, okay. Okay, that's okay. Watch this right here. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, Thrust in your sickle and reap, for the time has come for you to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. All right? Now, I want you to pay attention to the words on this. It's very important. When I was doing my translation of Revelation, I did 8 different Greek eclectic texts and several scores of Greek manuscripts on this, and it caught my eye. So see if it catches yours, okay? And verse 16, and he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped. Verse 17, and another angel came out of the temple which is in heaven, also having a sharp sickle, and another angel came out from the altar which had power over fire, and cried with a loud cry to him that had the sharp sickle, saying, Thrust in your sharp sickle, and gather the cluster of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. Do you see the difference here? You got the harvest of the earth and what? The harvest of the grapes. Not the same. Two different harvestings. So when you, in your header, when it says the harvesting, singular, of the earth, it's already misleading. You got 2 harvests here. The harvest, singular, of the earth, and the harvest, singular, of the clumps of grapes. You see, there's 2 harvests here, right? Okay. All right. Verse 19, and the angel thrusted his sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. And the winepress was trodden without the city, and blood came out of the winepress, even unto the horses' bridles, by a space of 1,600 furlongs, several hundred miles. Okay? All right, now, what is this describing? What have you been taught it describes? The blood up to the horse's bridle. Yeah. Yeah, it's a matter, what does this fit in your opinion? It's okay to be, because I'm going to tell you you're wrong anyway. But now remember what's happening here. You got somebody casting the grapes into the wine press. That is a symbol. Don't get confused with allegory. It is a symbol, right? And then the grapes are trodden in a wine press, and blood comes out all the way up to the horse's bridle, 3.5 feet, for 180 miles. It's what? It does. Most people teach this is the Battle of Armageddon, okay, where Jesus comes back. Why? Hold your finger here and turn to Revelation chapter 19. And in Revelation 19, verse 11, we'll just read the first few verses. First few verses of this passage. Revelation 19:11. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, capital F, capital T, because we're talking about whom? Jesus. This is the second coming. And in righteousness he judges and makes war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and he had a name written that no man knew but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and the name is called the Word of God. All right? And let's see if I can find this. Yeah, verse 15. And out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. And notice this, he treads the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Almighty God. What does that sound like? What we just read, right? Wrath of God, winepress. Both of them are there. Trotting. Both words are there. So what does Revelation 14:20 look like? it refers to. Most people teach you, overwhelmingly, that are tribulationists, they teach you this is the Battle of Armageddon in Revelation 14. But look with me, if you would, at Revelation 14:20 again. Revelation 14:20 again. Let's see if this is possible. And the winepress was trodden where? Outside the city, without the city? What city? The city. What city? Throw something out there. It isn't. Okay, where at? It's close to it, yeah. What city is the temple in? Yeah. The city in Revelation 14 is a reference to Jerusalem. Okay? So, he treads the winepress outside the city. Anybody have a Bible map in the back of their Bible? Hold your place in Revelation 14 and look at your Bible map. Let me just get something here. I'm going to get it technical information. No map, Ian. The middle for Israel, the nation of Israel. Okay. All right. If you look at Jerusalem, which is near the center, kind of probably of your Jerusalem map, you see the Dead Sea, and you look up a little bit to the northwest, you'll probably see Jerusalem. You see that? Got it? Yeah. You can do that. Okay. Yeah, right there. All right. You see Jerusalem. All right. Look way north of Jerusalem, and you'll see Megiddo. All right. Here's the catch. From Jerusalem to Megiddo is 2 hours. It is about 80 miles. Okay, so 80 miles by road. Megiddo in there. It should be Megiddo. Yeah. All right, here's my question. If any of y'all were telling me how to get to Macon, all right, how to get to Macon, how many of you would say it's right outside of Coolidge? It's outside the city of Coolidge. I mean, seriously. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you say it's just outside of Coolidge? Okay. Is Megiddo outside of Jerusalem? Is that how you would locate Megiddo? It's outside the city of Jerusalem. No, it's 80 miles away. So if the winepress in Revelation 14:20 is Armageddon, why are they referencing the Valley of Megiddo 80 miles from Jerusalem as being outside of the city? Don't y'all find that a bit strange? Yeah, I mean, but yeah, 80 miles, yeah, it's not, in other words, you wouldn't locate it. Yeah. No, please do, yeah. I see, yeah. To me, okay, I'll allow, I appreciate that. All right, so you're looking at it from a global perspective. Okay, what I would argue is that everything in Revelation that deals with Israel deals with it from an Israel perspective. Okay, so, and it's weird here to me that it's using Jerusalem as the marker for this bloodbath when it's 2 hours away. Okay, to me that seems a little strange. I can't contradict what you're saying. I'd have to go back right now and look at the whole context of Revelation and see when it's dealing with global and when it's dealing with Israel and see which one better fit this scenario. But in this case, I would say, to me, it seems kind of weird to talk about a valley 2 hours away as being located by Jerusalem. Yeah. Right, they do. Yeah, and Megiddo does. Just remember, in Revelation chapter 16, it said we're going to gather them at Armageddon. All right? So the main bulk of that battle is on that plain. Okay? So we got to, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying I'm trying to keep the context there. Okay? Here's what I think. Here's what I think. I think Revelation 14 and 15 go with Revelation 14. Let's see, yeah, okay. I think, here's what I got a little note here. It's in my Bible in pencil, so I had to look at it closely. I think 14, 16 is the gathering of the elect at the judgment of the nations. All right? Where do we find that? Matthew 24 and 25, the judgment of the sheep and goats, right? Sheep and goats. Judgment of the nations. We call it the judgment of the nations, but it's really the judgment of the Gentiles, okay? Israel's already been judged when Christ comes back at this point, and now he takes the Gentiles and he judges them. Ian, I know this is a head scratcher because this is a lot of stuff, but stick with me on this, okay? So he comes back, he judges the nation of Israel, he then brings them to the judgment of the Gentiles, the saved Jews. He says to the goats, you treated my brothers, the Jews, badly, you're going to hell. You treated my brothers, the Jews, right. To the sheep, you're going into the millennial kingdom, okay? There's more to it than that. I'm simplifying it. But here is what I want you to understand. The judgment of the nations, where does it take place? Any clue? Judgment of the nations, where does it take place? Nope, it's on earth, so that's good. You're 100% wrong. That's great that you were, okay? The judgment of the nation, the only thing that takes place in heaven up to this point is the judgment seat of Christ. So this is another judgment. I'm glad you made that mistake, okay? So the judgment seat of Christ is in heaven for Christians. Judgment of the Gentiles or of the nations is on earth. Where does it take place? Yeah, Jesus is on the throne, okay, of his father David. All right, it's right. It takes place outside of Jerusalem. Where? What valley? Anybody know? No. Remember, Megiddo is 2 hours away, so we're not going to use it as a reference to the valley being outside the city. You're right. It's not a city. Okay, it's outside of Jerusalem in the valley of Jehoshaphat. Okay. Yes, Jehoshaphat, the valley of decision in Hebrew, the valley of judgment, okay, Jehoshaphat. Where's the valley of Jehoshaphat? Catherine, what was your answer? Yeah, but where is Jehoshaphat, the valley? Where do you think it is? Okay, great. Y'all don't know. Guess what? Nobody else does either. Here's why. It doesn't exist right now. It does not exist right now. The valley of Jehoshaphat, no place on earth has ever been called the valley of Jehoshaphat. Okay? Guess where, when it does appear? When Jesus comes back. What happens to the Mount of Olives? The Mount of Olives is right outside Jerusalem. Yeah. Jesus comes back. What happens to the Mount of Olives? Zechariah, what does it do? Whoosh, splits in two parts. Guess what's formed? Valley of Jehoshaphat. All right? So the Gentile nations are brought into that valley, in my opinion. Now this, I'm giving you all a lot of stuff without the verses, but I have verses to support all this. We know in Zechariah it splits. We know Jehoshaphat is right outside the city of Jerusalem. Now Revelation 14 makes perfect sense. Now take those Gentiles that are not saved, and they're in this valley, and what does Jesus do to them? You just read it. He what? He judges them, and what is their judgment? And how does he, symbolically at the very least, but maybe literally, what does he do to them? It says they're trodden, right? What does trodden mean? Yeah, okay. Some people teach that when Jesus judges the Gentiles who are lost, they're in this valley, and he slaughters them by whatever means he slaughters them. And the blood is literally 3.5 feet deep for the length of the valley, 180 miles. Okay? That's what they teach. I believe that's possible. I don't believe it's possible in Megiddo. What is Megiddo? It's a mountain, but where are they fighting? The plain. There's no way possible, literally, for blood to be 3.5 feet deep for 180 miles over that whole plain. But if you have a valley and all of these unsaved Gentiles are being slaughtered in this valley, it's very possible that it could literally be that big of a mess. Okay, so I think Revelation 14:14 through 20, especially verses 17 through 20, are a reference to the Valley of Jehoshaphat and the judgment of the nations, right outside of Jerusalem. All the pieces fit. Okay, Megiddo, Armageddon, does not fit smoothly, in my opinion, with Revelation 14:17 through 20, because Megiddo is 2 hours away from Jerusalem. Okay, now let me finish up. So the Battle of Armageddon takes place. After the Battle of Armageddon, you have the judgment of Israel. Israel is saved. They're brought to the judgment of the nations, the Gentiles. The Gentiles are split into two groups. Part of them go into hell. Part of them go into the millennium, okay, along with the saved Jews. The saved people from the tribulation that are on earth when Jesus Christ returns go into the millennium in natural bodies. We know from Isaiah that if a person dies at 100 years old, they're considered a child. So they go back to the pre-flood lifespans. Make sense? Okay. So after the judgment, they go into the millennium. The millennium is the actual 1,000-year reign of Christ here on this earth. At the end of the 1,000 years, what happens? What happens at the end of 1,000 years? Yes, Satan is turned loose because he's bound at the beginning. He gathers an army. Can you believe that? Jesus has been here for 1,000 years running things, and Satan gets loose for just a few days, and he literally gathers an army of millions of people. They go against Jerusalem, and they try to take over Jesus and his throne. They actually do this. God says, enough. Fire comes down from heaven. It's all over. That's the end. Okay? Then you have the great white throne judgment. That's where all the lost people from from Cain, all the way until that battle, all of the lost people are judged, and the lost people are cast where? Lake of fire. That's right. Okay? Hell's temporary, lake of fire, permanent. Okay? All of the saved people, the ones that have natural bodies, I believe, maintain their natural bodies for all of eternity. According to Revelation, the nations have to go in and eat of the tree of life. Why do they have to eat of the tree of life every year? Yeah, nourishment, right? Just like Adam and Eve would have done if they hadn't have sinned. Okay? The church, we have glorified bodies. 1 Corinthians chapter 15. We don't have to go in and eat of the tree of life because we have glorified bodies, not natural bodies. We won't have children. We won't be married. Natural people will have children for all eternity. Now here's my belief, and I'm ended. I believe that earth was a test tube. What do you do with a test tube? Yeah, it's an experiment. God knew we were going to mess up. That didn't catch him by surprise. But he didn't let us mess up the whole universe. He stuck us in a corner on a little dirt ball and said, here, have at it. We messed it up. He redeemed us. And what happens to people, if Adam and Eve had never sinned, and anyone else for that matter, what would have happened to the earth's population? Yeah. So what would have happened? I'm going to use expansion. They would have had to go somewhere else. Why does man want to go to Mars and Jupiter and all those places? Because there's a part of him, I believe, that knows that's what was the original plan. But we messed it up. God never let us get off of earth. So what I think happens is in eternity, I think when people keep having children and all, that the whole universe is filled with what? Christians, saved people, saints, whatever word you want to use, praising God for all eternity. The whole universe. It was not created at random. It's not just out there for pretty. I know the Genesis verse, they're for signs and seasons. I know that. But I think they're for more than that. I think the whole universe is going to display God's glory with people populating the whole universe for all eternity and singing God's praises. I may be wrong. That is not doctrine, that is not dogma. But it explains a lot. Okay? There's not life on other planets right now. There will be life on other planets in eternity, in my opinion. Can you imagine just imagine an earth singing God's glory? That's pretty spectacular, isn't it? Now imagine a universe doing the same thing. I think God's plan is a little better than ours. I think that's what happens. Like I said, not doctrine, and I'm just sharing with you what I think happens. But that's my take on eschatology. I started just a few minutes late. I've gone a couple minutes over, but I appreciate y'all letting me teach this course this semester, for lack of a better word. Y'all are spectacular, and I really do appreciate you. If you have any questions, we'll have to put them off until after the camera's off and all that good stuff. But